Well, good morning, everybody. Thanks for coming on this sunny, at least it's a sunny Thursday morning where I am. So hope it is where you are as well. And it looks like we do have a quorum today. So that's good news. And so I think we might have a couple more people joining us, but I think we could go ahead and get started. Jacqueline, if you wanted to go ahead and do the roll call.
Sure. Okay. You all know the gig, your name and your affiliation. I'll start with Curtis.
Curtis Smeby, MSU Northern.
Hey, Curtis. Gary.
Gary Lucene, Bozeman trustee.
Ready? Stevie. Morning.
Stevie Schmitz, Rocky Mountain College.
Gail.
Gail Stephenson, Richland County Superintendent.
Excellent. Susan.
Susan Gregory, Montana State University Billings.
Allison.
Allison Harmon, Montana State University.
Thank you. Emily.
Emily Dean with the Montana School Boards Association.
Thank you. Kari.
Kari Orendorf, Montana State University, Health Enhancement.
Thank you. Lisa. Lisa, are you there? Are you able to unmute yourself? She may have stepped away for a moment. Laura.
Laura Posner Brown, grade 5 through 8, librarian in Lewistown, Montana.
Okay, thank you. And McCall, good morning.
Hi, good morning, everyone. McCall Flynn, the Board of Public Ed.
Thank you. Have I missed anybody who's here?
I'm just moving Barbara over to the panelists from the attendees.
Oh, wonderful. Good morning, Barbara. If you can just say your name and your affiliation for the recording.
Hi, I'm Barbara. I'm a principal at Lowell Elementary in Missoula, Montana. Obviously, Montana, I always say that. I don't know why.
That's all right. Can't hurt to clarify. Okay, I think that's everybody, unless you see someone else who's, I don't see anybody else who's joined. So we can move on.
Oh, Mary is here.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mary. Missed you.
Yes, Mary D. Sharm, occupational therapist, assistive technology, professional, telespell, financial transitions consulting.
Thank you. Okay, got you there.
All right, well, thank you, Jacqueline, and thanks again, everybody, for being here. So we'll do a quick recap of last week and then update you on the feedback group meeting, talk more about the timeline, and then these next two bullets. This is, based on, I guess, my thinking as far as the time we have left and what we've talked about the last couple of weeks in terms of what we can wrap up in the time that we have left to us. I believe we just have 2 more meetings after this. But, maybe focus on the 311 and 315. If we have time, I know Stevie did send some further revisions to subchapters 6 and 7 that we can talk about if we have time, and then we can talk about next steps before we adjourn. So last week we reviewed timelines and deliverables. We talked about sort of what do we have, what can we accomplish in the time that we have left. There has been, some feedback around that we, need to take more time on some of this, also around some of the potential changes to the endorsement areas in subchapter 5. Trying to get some experts or practitioners involved in that. And so there was a discussion around, extending some of that work beyond October 7th and, maybe having some subcommittees dive into some of this, possibly even looking at some other research questions. But there was also a desire expressed to wrap up at least the changes to 501, 311 through 315, and then subchapters 6 and 7, as well as the broader recommendations referenced in subchapter 5 or section 501. We do have the tracking document. The comprehensive tracking document that was requested last week is available now on the web page, the Google site, I should say. And then we did have some questions around the quorum. We have now had, I believe, 5 people that are no longer part of the task force. I believe that brings our quorum number to 9. And I think we have at least 9 here today. So that's a good thing. So thank you again for being here. I'm glad everybody's here and we didn't have any issues or hiccups with people getting on the meeting. I know that that has been happening, and Susan, I apologize that that happened last week and that we were not able to get you on. So seems that that's resolved. So thank you. So we did have the feedback group on Monday. It was primarily folks from the EPPs, Tricia Seifert, SD from Western, and now her name escapes me, but the other person from the University of Montana. Can you help me remember her name, Jacqueline?
Remembering an Adria, but I'm not sure that's
Adria,
who it
yes.
is. Yeah.
So they were kind of the primary folks that were there and participated in the conversation on Monday. The language that we've talked about in 311B, and I believe it's 616, around the placement, and we changed the language from must to the extent possible. They still don't like that language. Said that they think it will make their placement harder. There are challenges because students, may, if they don't like their placement, they may decide that they're going to go look at the ARM and, sort of challenge their program based on the ARM language, whether or not they tried to place them where they wanted to be to the fullest extent possible. That was kind of the scenario that they discussed. And then they also, the question around the pay was also another one that they were not necessarily happy about, felt that it was going to cause some inequities in placements or, candidates sort of trying to get placements in places where they might get paid. They felt that we're going a little fast, that we need to provide more time for feedback and input before we formalize any of this. They were in favor of kind of the process of utilizing content experts with subchapter 5. And then there were some general questions about what is the process? So just explaining that, this task force brings the recommendations, to the superintendent reviews those, decides which ones will be, set forward to the Board of Public Ed, and then also SISBAC reviewing them and providing their input and feedback. So that was kind of the gist of the meeting on Monday. Jacqueline, do you have anything that you want to add?
Yes, I do remember that they really felt that the language that we added about grow your own didn't necessarily point in that direction. Like they felt if that's what was intended to encourage grow your own models to place students where they in their communities, they didn't think that that was clear. And they were uncomfortable with all the things that we talked about. They were uncomfortable with this one. And my take on the one about pay is that we brought it up last time as well, and they were uncomfortable with it, but they were a little more resigned because they recognized that it was already allowable by law and that this was just pointing out something. I think they just weren't thrilled, as you said, Zach.
Yeah,
thought it wasn't necessary.
Yeah, and I think there's a kind of a read of the current landscape, and we've talked about emergency authorizations and some of those things, and that this is probably just a reality. But yeah, I mean, Western has a program right now that basically it's kind of a grow your own partnership with Browning, and teachers can work on their certification while getting paid to work in the schools there. So it is happening. I think there's just a concern that where is it going to go, and how is it going to impact placements. And even I think Esty brought up that they've had candidates that actually dropped out of their program to teach under emergency authorization. So those were some of the concerns that were expressed. So I guess I would just, is there any questions, comments, anything anybody would like to offer at this point? Yeah, McCall.
Thanks, Zach. To your comment about saying that this might be moving too fast, we did hear some of that at the Board of Public Education meeting last week as well. And I know you had made a comment about potentially bringing forward a revised timeline. I'm wondering if you could maybe just talk a little bit more about that, or maybe if that's what you're going to talk about at the end, I could catch up with you after too. I just wanted to see kind of what your conversations have been since then.
We have had, that conversation. And again, I think even within the OPI, there's a little bit of a question about the research that happened before we started this process, and sort of how extensive and how thorough was that research, and how much is that really feeding this process. But as far as the revised timeline, that what we talked about was that we felt that it was going to be hard to get through all this, and it was going to be a heavy lift, and that we wanted to leave that sort of open to the task force to consider. And I think what I heard last week was that there is a desire to try to formally recommend the changes to 311 through 315, as well as the 600 and 700, as well as 501, but that beyond that, the stuff in the sort of the endorsement areas and or other sort of research questions would be kind of the focus of any work that happened in the extended timeline beyond that, and that would potentially we wouldn't meet every week. We would have sort of work groups or sort of subgroups within the task force that we're looking at specific pieces of that, and then we would be meeting less frequently, and they'd be bringing forward, this is what we worked on, this is what we proposed. Now, all of that being said, I mean, ultimately, I think it's, again, I'm a facilitator. You guys were brought here to really, do this process. And so I think that's something that kind of rests in the hands of the task force as far as what we complete on the timeline. But I see there's some other people that have hands up. I think first Emily and then Stevie.
Thanks, Zach. I am curious about what it looks like after, I guess in the next 2 meetings when we send whatever recommendations we've put together to the superintendent. Has she seen any of the updates that we've adopted so far? And I guess, do you anticipate a lot of changes, or, since this is an OPI task force, is it going to be, the task force recommendation that she puts forward?
Well, that's a great question. And to be honest, I have not spoken to the superintendent about this at all. I've spoken to Cheryl, but in terms of, if you're asking me, sort of read the tea leaves as far as what the superintendent might, put forth out of these recommendations and what she might not, I really cannot, in all honesty, give you an answer.
Thank you.
Yeah. Stevie.
Thanks, Zach. That was my question as well. So Emily took care of it. Thank you.
Okay. Allison.
Thanks, Zach. Yeah, I just wanted to affirm the concerns of the advisory group, but also I think the language that Emily and I worked on together doesn't necessarily do any harm. And so if it encourages EPPs to work with schools who are doing those Grow Your Own programs, then I think that might be a good thing.
Yeah, well, thank you for that. I mean, I one thing that I have found, I'll just say a little curious. I mean, it was, you know, the objections were pretty strong, shall I say. And one thing that I do find a little curious is that, you know, people are saying, well, we're doing all of this. This is already being done, but we just don't want it in the ARM. So that's a little curious, but I do know, you know, in visiting with you and Stevie and Adria yesterday, you know, I think you guys shed a little bit of light on sort of what that looks like in practice and how, you know, what the ramifications for that might be for the work that you do. I would also just add that, you know, it was something that we discussed here at the OPI as far as I believe is it 4 of the 10 EPPs that are CAPE certified, is that correct? Or CAPE aligned, I should say. And so
Right.
there was a little bit of how would that impact, you know, once these changes are made, how would that impact those that aren't? But I think Stevie, you kind of addressed that yesterday when we spoke. So I don't know that it's going to be a, you know, a big issue for those folks. But that's kind of, I guess, my thoughts and what I know as far as this process and kind of what I've heard from people. So are there any other questions or comments? All
So
right.
I just wanted to acknowledge Cheryl has joined us. Hi,
Oh.
Cheryl, and see if anybody else is here.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Cheryl. Thank you for being here. And we were just talking about the feedback group, and I'm just curious if there's anything you would like to say to the task force or questions you might have today.
Not at this time. I would just like to again thank folks for their steady commitment to this process and active involvement that we have from each member of the task force. You're very much appreciated.
All right. Well, thank you for that, Cheryl. So, yeah, I thought it would be good. Again, you know, McCall just kind of brought this up. I thought it would be good for us to just talk through, you know, kind of what I've proposed today is that we really focus our discussion on 311 and 315, since those recommendations are sort of the ones that have been out there the longest for people to look at and consider. Stevie did send me yesterday evening some revised further revisions, I should say, to subchapters 6 and 7 that we might delve into a little bit today if time permits. But also in 501, there was a desire, I believe it was 501G, and that was the language that was adopted and recommended to address the social emotional learning. I believe there was a desire to go back and maybe revamp that language a little bit. And so, you know, that's what I'm sort of, as I sit here right now, that's what I'm envisioning we might accomplish today. But then what I'm envisioning is then next week, we could really, you know, we'd have an opportunity to update the further revisions to subchapters 6 and 7 and give task force members a week to review those. And then next week, that might be sort of the focus of our, you know, our discussion and conversation. And then the 7th would really just be an opportunity to kind of finalize any language and put those broad recommendations forth. So just would like to hear from folks, their thoughts on that. Does this seem reasonable, doable? Are there concerns? That sort of thing. Stevie.
Not a concern, Zach, but just wanted to note that if I can have just a couple minutes today, I can tell you about the changes that were made from last week to this week and probably shorten up everybody's review time.
That sounds great. I'm sure we can make that happen. And thank you, Stevie. McCall.
Thanks, Zach. I do have a little bit of a concern if the plan is to potentially bring some of these subchapter revisions to SISBAC on the 14th and then potentially wait and do some other ones later when we're talking about subchapter 5 and some of the experts. I think it's been good practice in the past to bring all of the chapter together at once to make sure that we're not inadvertently making changes to one chapter that then affect another subchapter that maybe we're looking at down the road. So I would just caution us maybe with that. And I do understand the timeline, and I know you guys want to bring this back on the 14th, and I support you in that. I just know that there's a lot of folks who are asking us to maybe pause and think through that subchapter 5 work. So I want to just caution us that if we're looking at this, I think it would be better to bring chapter 58 to the Board of Public Ed and to SISBAC as one full chapter rather than bits and pieces.
All right, thank you for that. And the only thing I would say is I think of all the subchapters, 5 is the one that's probably the least, I guess, connected to the others, because the others are really more on program and placement and accreditation, process and things like that. And, subchapter 5 is more of those specific endorsement areas, but I do understand that what you're speaking to in terms of how it normally goes and how it might impact the review of SISBAC. Emily.
Thank you. I was just wondering if we could also include today 606, which is that same update that Allison and I worked on earlier.
Yeah, and I think we can, and I think what I've heard now from Stevie and from you is that there is a desire to look at those. So I'm sure we can make time for that. Okay, Allison.
Just quick, I want to agree with McCall that the piecemeal approach with SISBAC might be problematic, and they might be hesitant to approve something without seeing the whole package. And so that might be a reason to wait until we have the whole package. But definitely interested in getting done what we've got done today. And so I'm going to be quiet now and mute.
Okay. Thank you. Stevie.
And just one note about Emily's comment, that sentence needs to go in, but I couldn't get on the website to cut and paste the exact language. So that's one of my notes for today about what you look at has not been completed, because that needs to be put in there. And maybe Tristan, you can do that before we get
Jacqueline, is that language included now in the complete tracker that you put together?
Which
I guess
language?
Tristan helped you at the end there.
We have everything but nothing from last night.
Right, but the language,
The
is
little-
it 312B and also, and is it 6?
Yeah, everything in 311 to 315 and 6. I stopped at 6. I didn't touch 7 because you hadn't worked on it yet, Stevie, at least. And I think there was a little bit at the end of 6 where you had some red, and I didn't do those either. So we should be able to make them all.
Okay, so we just need to add that statement. Like I said last week, I just couldn't get on the right place to find the exact language. So that is intended to be included and needs to be changed before it goes out to everybody.
Thank you, Stevie. Gary.
Thanks, Zach. I'm just curious on the October 7th meeting. I'm curious if we should find out if we're going to have a quorum at that meeting. I know I will probably not be able to be on that, and there may be others that maybe, I don't know about everybody else, but if we have to vote on something that day, I'd just like to make sure we have a quorum of people on that date.
All right, thank you for that, Gary. Let's see, Mary.
I also will not be able to be there October 7th.
Okay. Well, that may be some legwork that myself and Jacqueline need to do.
Yep, to ensure we have a
in our
quorum.
follow-up, to try to, do a little bit of math there as far as who's going to be there, and communicate that to folks before we get into next week. But thank you for bringing that up, and that is an important consideration.
Yeah, I just see two more people who won't be able to make it. Okay. We'll do that.
Okay. Yeah. All right. I see that in the chat.
Mhm.
So it sounds like probably next week would be the best time to wrap some of this up if we're going to, complete what we've talked about completing by the end of the timeline.
Okay. Allison and Emily also not available. So yeah, we will have to try to do that.
Okay. Anything else before we move on? Gary and Mary, I'm assuming you're just didn't put your hands down. Is that correct? Yes. Okay.
That's correct. Sorry, Zach.
No, that's okay. Just want to make sure. Okay. So yeah, at this time, do we want to just pull up the tracking document and talk about 311 and 315? And I'm assuming that people have had a chance to look at those, so maybe there won't be a lot of discussion, but certainly want to have everybody do a review before we potentially vote on anything. And I know you put that in the chat.
I'm happy to pull it up if you just, or you can.
That would be great. Thank you. I'll stop sharing here and I'll let you do that.
It says host disabled participant screen sharing, so I might have to be made a co-host.
Yep, sorry about that, Jacqueline.
No problem.
You're on for a week and then you just forget everything.
Here we go. Okay, let me try to make this a little bigger. This is I went right to the language in, is this 311? No, 501, sorry. In blue in the tracker are proposed changes, many of which are in the 600s. Here you see the red. Red means we've already approved this change. So what was suggested is really an edit. Instead of saying plan and implement evidence-based instruction, interviews, and extensions, we would just say plan and implement evidence-based instruction and practices that support, and then the rest of the statement, the diverse academic and social, emotional, and behavioral needs of all students.
Jacqueline, do we want to start with 311?
Oh, sure. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Okay. We're in 311. Okay. So what you see in blue is the strike through with changes, and you may want to open it up on your own as well.
And I believe, yeah, that for those that didn't notice, that link was, Jacqueline put that in the chat if you want to open that up. And you also notice she did put the things that were pending versus the things that had been voted on, to just kind of clarify that. So as you're going through that, you can see what the task force has already voted on, and what things they've yet to vote on.
Yeah, you're right. The column C tells you what the changes were proposed. Like in this case, there's a new B added, so all of the subsequent subchapters are renumbered, relettered, I suppose. What's a good process for this? That folks look at the whole of 311 and then raise any questions or concerns they have? We have talked about this a little bit before, right?
Yeah, I think we would look at 311, any final discussion, and assuming that there's a desire to go ahead and vote, I think we would do the vote, and then we could move to the next one.
So we're talking about A through G. And there's something in the chat. Could you scroll over a bit more to see comments? B is really the best thing to look at because C is just telling me what to do.
Does everybody feel they're able to track this and see the existing language and the proposed changes?
Emily has her hand up.
Yeah, I just had a question on C. So I'm just hoping to clarify standard 1. What standard is that referring to? At the very end, it says or in every state.
The last line. Yeah. Allison or anybody can address this.
So you're talking about the last part of C, Emily?
That's correct. Yep. I just wasn't sure what standard 1 referred to.
I think Kari has her hand up.
I believe it's Cape Standard 1.
I'm wondering if there's maybe a way that we can spell that out or paraphrase.
I mean, actually put the standard in there or just put the word Cape to indicate exactly what it is.
Yeah, I mean, I hesitate to point people in multiple directions because I think that's one of the things that we hear frequently in terms of, having to go multiple places to understand what is expected of you. And so that's just my only concern is having to send people multiple places.
Thank you for that. And just so you know, I believe McCall just put the link to that standard in the chat for anybody that might want to look at that.
Yeah, our CAPE agreement was actually just approved last week. So I just put in the signed document that we agreed upon and CAPE Standard 1 is in there.
Okay. Mary just in the chat asked if we could have annexes or references. I'm not sure on that, Kari.
Well, I was just wondering if we could just say, refer back to the ARM Standard 1 in there. Instead of being super specific, just tell them to go back to the ARM.
And then Susan saying there could be ambiguity about in-task versus CAPE standard. So we should clarify it in some way. I think that's what you mean, Susan. So we can make, if we can agree, we can make a change right now. It's still in blue.
Anybody have some proposed language that would clarify but not make it too confusing or too complicated?
I think referring back to the arm that would be associated is fine. I think it just needs to, because there'll be an arm. It's just hard when you're jumping from document to document that aren't the same thing.
And I see in the chat, Mary was concurring with that.
So what's, or an evidence review of arm 1? That's all?
Or maybe just ARM standard.
Standard one, okay. Do that right now.
Does that actually get us? I mean, what is ARM standard 1?
Yeah, that's what I'm worrying about.
I mean, right? Like CAPE is not an ARM as far as I know. I mean, we're incorporating it here.
Right. Okay, so we have 2 more people. Let's see. Kari has her hand up.
Nope, Kari forgot to lower it.
Okay. So yeah, I guess question, are we referring to a CAPE standard or an ARM standard here?
Hey, Zach, Anne in the attendees has a comment.
Okay.
Good morning, Ann Eubank, Montana State University Department of Education head. Listening to this, I think what is being suggested is a cross-reference to the portion of this chapter where the accreditation standards are located. So that would be, I don't have the chapter number in front of me, but you know, I think legal might be able to take care of this because it looks like it needs to be cross-referenced to me.
So Anne, are you saying this is referring back to subchapter 1?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
That's where the so standard 1 is parallel to CAPE. So CAPE and BPE have the same standard 1, and that is an accreditation standard. So wherever that standard 1 is spelled out, that's the cross-reference, I believe.
Okay. Thank you for that.
And
that would make sense.
Yeah, McCall might be able to explain this more clearly because she has a depth of knowledge about how the ARM is structured legally.
And I appreciate, Anne, that you have that much faith in me, but I actually don't have a good understanding of how it is structured. So I do think it'd be a good question for legal because I'm not entirely sure how to reference. And Cheryl, you probably have an answer.
Yeah, I concur that when we're getting into elements that need to cross-reference, which is going to show up in ARM or other places, that is a responsibility of legal to do that. And we certainly have access to the expertise to get that done.
Glad we could clear that up. Thank you.
Thanks, Cheryl. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
So if we just, again, we're putting this to legal to sort of fine tune the language, but we've indicated there that we are, it's a cross reference to standard 1. So I guess the question being, is everybody comfortable with that? Are there any further questions or comments? Okay. Seeing none, are we ready to vote on this? And I acknowledge, I just want to kind of make sure that there's no objection to taking a vote. But before we do that, we also need to make sure we open this for public comment. Okay. Hearing none, at this time, I would open the floor for any of our members of the public who are joining. I think somebody maybe is just not muted. At this time, I would open it up for any members of the public who are joining us today to comment on this before the vote. Okay. Hearing no public comment. Oh, Emily has her hand up.
Are we just doing 311 or does this also include 312 and 313?
311.
Okay, I'm good. Thanks.
Okay. Tristan, are you available to take the vote count?
Yes, if you want to call names, I can record.
I can do that.
Okay, do you want me to do that part, Jacqueline?
I got it right here. That's okay. Okay, Emily.
Yes.
Okay. Oh, it's not Cheryl, not you. Hold on. Curtis,
Yes.
Susan,
Yes.
Allison,
Yes.
McCall,
Yes.
Gail,
Yes.
sorry, Barbara. Hi, Barbara.
Yes.
Kari,
Yes.
Mary,
Yes.
Gail, did I call on you already? I'm sorry.
Yes, you did.
Okay. Gary,
Yes.
Lisa,
Yes.
I think that's everybody. Did I miss anyone? I feel like I did.
Jacqueline, you didn't get me. So I vote yes.
Who's that?
Stevie.
Oh, great. Thank you. Sorry about that. Okay. Woohoo.
I'm glad, Stevie, that you voted yes to your own language.
That was collaborative.
I thought about it for a little bit, but I'm ready to go with the majority.
Okay. So maybe we could move to 312.
Yes.
And I would just say that the language in red to the extent possible, that was already voted on. I will just note the objection that was expressed in that feedback group.
So we have A, B, C, D here.
Yep. Yeah, right. The language in red and B, I should clarify that.
Right.
So not hearing any comments, questions, maybe people are just I'll give another couple minutes for people just to look at this. So are there any comments, questions? Or are we ready to hear any public comment and then vote on this? Okay, I'm not hearing any objection or comments. So I will go ahead and open this up for any of our members of the public who might want to comment before the vote. Okay. Hearing none, are we ready to vote?
Okay, and this is for 312, the changes in 312. I'll start with Stevie.
Yes.
Okay, Gail,
Yes.
Gary,
Yes.
Yes.
Lisa,
Yes.
Curtis,
Yes.
Susan,
Yes.
McCall,
Yes.
Barbara,
Yes.
Kari,
Yes.
Emily,
Yes.
and Lisa.
I don't want to vote twice. You called on me already.
Oh, sorry about that.
You missed me though, Jacqueline. It's Allison.
Oh, okay, sorry.
I vote yes.
Thank you.
I think we need Mary as well.
Mary,
I think you called me before. I said yes.
okay, can't hurt to double check. Okay. Unless somebody else speaks up that I've left them off, that's it. And it was unanimous. All right.
All right, well, thank you, everybody. And we can move on to 313.
Yes. Changes in A and B. Let's see, C. Some moving of parts over here. Something moved, which I did not, by the way, actually incorporate it yet. So that's something we should be aware of. I just realized that I said it should be moved, but I haven't put it in any place. So when we get to 315, we have to make sure we do that. And same thing here for D, moving to 314, as well as a few things here. So this will have to be replaced to F. Emily has her hand up.
Yeah, the only thing I wanted to comment on here was under B, and I'm wondering if we should replace America's P12 students with Montana's.
Here in B with Americas with Montana's. Ah. Can folks address that? Does anyone have a comment or a concern about that?
This is Stevie. I don't have a concern. I wonder if we want to put, I think Montana is fine. I think that's what we actually try to do. And then for Cape, we just explain that's what we have done. I don't have any objections to changing that.
Thank you, Emily. Thank you, Stevie.
Lisa's commenting she feels Montana is appropriate.
Yeah. In all reality, that's the best we can do. It's sometimes difficult to meet that standard, but I agree. I think Montana is more appropriate than America.
Jacqueline, do you want to put it in the second column as well, just so it's consistent and there's no confusion?
Yes, good point. Thank you. So there will be some relettering when we move these parts. So know that there may be a different, this lettering and numbering in here as well, may change when we move some of these sections.
All right, thank you for making those changes. Thank you, Emily, for that suggestion. Other comments, concerns, thoughts on this section? Okay, not hearing any. Any objection to voting on the proposed recommended changes to section 313? Okay. Hearing none, is there any public comment on the proposed changes to section 313? Okay, hearing none, let's go ahead and take a vote.
Okay, Stevie.
Yes.
Emily.
Yes.
Mary.
Yes.
Curtis.
Yes.
Susan.
Yes.
McCall.
Yes.
Gail.
Yes.
Barbara.
Yes.
Kari.
Yes.
Gary.
Yes.
Lisa.
Yes.
Right.
I think-
Allison.
Yes.
I think that's everybody. Gail, Gail called on you, Gail, right? I believe so. Yep. Okay.
Yes, you did. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So let's go ahead and move on to 314. Just a quick note that this would include as
Yes.
the things that were voted on in 313 would then be moved into 314. Just want to be clear about that. So that would be 313
Part of D.
and
F.
F.
That's 314. Yes. Okay. And I'm assuming legal will provide kind of help with where to put them and how to do that. And we'll get a chance to review that, I hope. Yeah, we're going to give this to them. Okay. Here we are. So this is 314. A, B, C, D, E, and again, those other two sections. Sorry, I wish we had done that. We could have just put them in a row here.
Any questions, comments, concerns about anything that's being proposed as far as recommended revisions to section 314? Okay. Hearing none, is there any objection to taking a vote after public comment? Okay. Not hearing any objection. At this time, I would open it up to anyone who's attending that would like to comment before the task force votes. Okay, not hearing any public comment or objection to taking a vote. Let's go ahead and vote.
Okay, Curtis,
Yes.
Susan,
Yes.
Allison,
Yes.
Stevie,
Yes.
McCall,
Yes.
Mary,
Yes.
Gail,
Yes.
Emily,
Yes.
Barbara,
Yes.
Kari,
Yes.
Gary.
Yeah,
Okay, have I missed anyone?
This is Lisa. I vote yes.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
Okay, well, thank you, everybody, for voting on that. And the last one in subchapter 3 that we're addressing today, 315. And again, just a quick note that that would be part of section
It's part
I or
of C, yeah.
C would be
This-
moved to from
315.
313 to 315.
Thank you.
And I do see in the chat, McCall said she has to head to another meeting. She votes yes to the proposed changes in 315. 316 and 317 as well. So is that, I guess that's a question, and maybe Cheryl, does a chat count as a vote in this process?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for that. So any questions, comments on 315?
I just want to point out there's a new standards recommended here. You'll see it under F. And I think another one here, well, different sections. All of this is a new section starting under F, I believe. But I don't want to make it too small to look at the whole picture. And then there's a little bit here only for EPP seeking access to Title IV funds, Standard 7.
But for the purpose of this vote, we'll focus on 315.
Oh, I see. Yeah, right. Mary has her hand up.
Yeah, it just says develops a, it should be develops an. Just a grammatical error there.
Which letter?
Can you scroll back again? Develops, oh, right there, B.
Develops a develops a functioning assurance system.
Oh, okay, I didn't see functioning, I'm sorry.
That's okay. I'm an English major. I'm not fighting with you. Yeah. I'm sure there's a format too for this, things like penultimate commas and stuff. I tried not to worry about.
Peter.
Any further questions, comments, concerns regarding 315?
Completer achievements. Completer.
Where are you looking?
On B again.
That can monitor, develops a functioning assurance system comprised of multiple measures that can monitor candidate progress, completer achievements. Yeah, do you want clarification on what that is?
Yeah.
Yeah. Can somebody help? Is there somebody who can clarify the meaning of completer achievements in B? I think I don't want to.
Anne has her hand up.
What? Oh, shoot.
This is Ann Eubank. I might be able to clarify, but can you repeat where this is?
This is in 315B. Develops a functioning assurance system comprised of multiple measures that can monitor candidate progress, completer achievements, and provider operational effectiveness.
All right, thank you, Jacqueline. So the question is, what are completer achievements?
Yes.
Okay. So the completer achievements include a passing score on the praxis currently, the content area GPA, and then a field evaluation with a passing score. All three of these measures are they're placed on a tool called the MAC, the Montana Assessment of Content Knowledge. And then that MAC gives the Office of Public Instruction a passing score so that they may issue a license. So it's basically data that is in this assurance system that we're required to collect on our completers so they can be licensed. Does that help? Yes, it does. All right, thank you.
Stevie, did you have something to add to that?
I can add nothing to what Ann says ever. She did a great job.
Aw, Stevie, thank you. I love working with you too.
Okay, so I think that has been explained. Any other questions, comments, concerns about anything else in 315 that's being proposed for revision? Okay. Hearing none, is there any objection to voting on section 315 after public comment? Okay, at this time, would any of our public attendees like to make any comments? Okay, hearing none, I think we can go ahead and vote on the recommended changes to section 315.
Okay, Curtis,
Yes.
Allison,
Yes.
Gary,
Yes.
Mary, Mary, you're muted. I see your mouth moving, Mary, but you're still muted. There you go.
Okay.
Did you vote yes or no?
I think you're muted again, Mary.
I'm frozen.
You're frozen. Oh, all right, we'll come back to you in a moment.
Yeah.
Are you okay now? Are you, it sounds better.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Lisa,
Yes.
Kari,
Yes.
Stevie,
Yes.
okay. Emily,
Yes.
Gail,
Yes.
I think that's everybody. My screen did a strange thing. Did I?
Yes,
Susan, okay, thank you.
to Susan.
Yes, thank you, Susan. Sorry about that. I think that's everyone. Did anybody not get called upon? Okay,
I only have 11 votes. Maybe someone else dropped out of the meeting.
So
Laura.
McCall dropped off, but she did in the
Yes,
chat
but
said she
that is
would.
including McCall's vote. So we're down one vote, but we still make quorum.
okay. I know Laura said she had to go.
Yeah, she's
So-
been gone the whole meeting though. Pretty much.
Yeah, pretty much. Okay, you weren't counting her. I wonder who that is then, but
Oh, it looks like Barbara.
Barbara, okay. And she's out,
Yep, she's gone.
okay. Yeah, it's tough for school folks, I'm sure. She really made an effort to make it today, so, okay. Well, we have a quorum, so the vote has been taken, so we will turn these into red ink. And that's great. Do we want to look, Zach, at the new standard?
Yeah, I didn't put these in,
Oh, okay.
but yeah, I think could we just have a comment about these and if people are ready to vote on these or if they want more time to look at them before we vote?
Yeah, this is everything after F. Emily.
Yeah, I just, I guess I have a question. I guess what is the intended outcome of including them in chapter 58? They're different than really anything else that's in chapter 58. And so I'm just, I guess I'm not understanding why they need to be included in chapter 58. It seems more like internal procedures, but Stevie, I'm really excited to hear what you have to say.
I think this is part of the 600 and 700 discussion. Is that correct, Jacqueline?
I think we're still in 5.
3.
I mean 3, sorry.
No, I think this is part of the 6 and 7 discussion.
Oh, okay. I don't have the original document that Allison and others worked on. I'm not sure.
Hold on
But-
1 second.
But
Yeah,
if what you're saying is these need to be put into the 6 and 7,
Yeah, if I'm looking at my hard copy now, but I don't think they belong there. I think it's part of the 6 and 7.
okay. I know there were some new standards. Okay, but I'll put here.
Yeah, I see what you sent me yesterday.
Yeah, this belongs in 6 and 7.
Okay,
So we'll include that with the discussion and I think I can answer that question because the revision today takes care of one of the new standard recommendations.
okay. Let me just put a note here and I'll move it afterwards. Sorry about that, folks.
That's okay.
Okay. Okay, how come my screen is strangely looking right? Oh, I know why, because it's so big that I can't read it all. Where are we in terms of our agenda, Zach? I just want to make sure I'm.
So, yeah, I would like to maybe put it out to the members here, because what I heard, I believe, was that there was a desire to talk about 6 and 7. We have approximately 15 minutes left today. I had put the, revisiting a couple of the things in section 501 as the next item on the agenda. However, I think that change to section G would be a pretty minor thing. So if we would prefer collectively to talk about 6 and 7 and for the balance of our time today, I'm certainly open to that.
I don't think my part will take very long. I just want to prepare people for what they do this week, looking at 6 and 7.
Okay. Well, maybe, do we want to just look at 501? I think that'll be a pretty quick process unless there's
That's fine with me.
some unanticipated conversation that I'm not thinking is going to happen, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So
Yeah.
Could we maybe scroll down to 501?
Yep, here we are.
So I believe what,
It's G right here,
yeah,
this one. So it's just an edit again. It's, oh, okay. It should be, this is what's coming out. So this would come out and it would just say instruction and
Was it,
practices.
I thought it was just gonna be evidence-based best practices that support.
Well, I wasn't clear. It looked to me like it was instruction and practices, but I wondered about that. So I think we can make that decision now. Yeah, the way it was edited, it wasn't clear. But evidence-based practices
Right,
would
best
probably cover.
practices. Or practices, probably.
Yeah, probably practices is, evidence-based practice is probably the highest level. Yep. What, it's up, Leah. What do people think? Oh, sorry. Covered that. There was confusion about what interviews and extensions really referred
Right,
to.
people felt it was a little too ambiguous. I think interviews was the word that a lot of people were hung up on.
Yep.
So any thoughts on this changing that recommendation and taking out interviews and extensions and just saying evidence-based practices? Susan's giving me a thumbs up. And Stevie, okay. Is there any objection to a vote after public comment? Okay. Hearing none. Are there any public attendees that would like to comment on this proposed change before a vote? Okay, hearing none, I think we can go ahead and take a vote.
Okay, Emily,
Yes.
Stevie,
Yes.
Kari,
Yes.
Mary,
Yes.
Curtis, thank you.
Yes.
Allison,
Yes.
Susan,
Yes.
Gail,
Yes.
Gary,
Yes.
Lisa.
Yes.
Hey, did I miss anybody?
Did McCall vote on this? I don't think she did.
She did
No.
not.
Okay,
No.
we will not include her then.
Do we still have a quorum?
Yes, there's 10 task force members.
Okay.
Okay, fabulous.
Okay. So, so now, maybe we can devote the last 10 minutes or so of our time to discussing 6 and 7. And if you would like, Stevie, I can just share the document that you sent me with that.
First, if you would share the short document that I sent you, the brief summary of the P-cells.
Okay, hold on one
Oh.
sec. I think I have them all open, but I just need to make sure I'm looking at the right one.
Okay.
And while he's pulling that up, Stevie, what we'd like to do is update the tracker to reflect the changes. Are there a lot of, is there any way you might have marked the ones in 6 that are different than what we had?
I did.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, that'll make it easier. Fabulous. Mary, do you have a comment? I see your hand up, or it could be from before.
Yeah, the person who left, she referred to references to standard 6 and standard 7 on 3.
I'm sorry.
In the chat,
Okay.
okay, the person who left,
I do believe there needs some work on 316 reference to standard 6
Yeah.
and 317 reference to standard 7. Okay,
yeah,
very good. Thank you.
Yeah, I have it. I apologize. I'm having a little bit of a challenge here. It's not letting me move it. Let's see. Okay. Okay. Is that what you were referring to?
Right,
Stevie?
that's great. Okay, so, and then we'll go to the other document as soon as I make a few quick comments here. Last week, I gave you the elongated version of the PSAL standards. Remember, those are the professional standards for educational leaders. These are the operational standards we use to prepare our candidates. I realize I probably gave you way too much in those 46 pages to read. So this is the brief version that lists the 10 standards. And I wanted to point out that the major shift for this particular standard from the ones we used before, which were the ISLIC and LSIC standards, there won't be a quiz on this later. The biggest difference is at the very end of each standard, we're pointed to the importance of academic success, which the PEPs have always spoken to, and well-being of each student. It's the well-being of each student that is the major shift in the PSAL standards that are newly written. And this really speaks to our earlier conversation of trauma-informed and all the things we talked about personalizing education for each student. This puts the focus on leadership in addition to high-quality academic success or expectations. It also adds to each one of these 10 standards the words well-being of each student. So this was the part we still had to infuse after we left it with you last week. So I want to show you how we've done that. And so Zach, if you can go to the other one.
Okay, give me just 1 second.
There we go. So chapter 6 and chapter 7 deal with the advanced program preparation for principals, primarily superintendents, and the focus changing from strictly academics to well-being has to be reflected somehow in our new standards. So how we have done this, and I've highlighted in yellow every place it's changed. So if you just want to scroll down, there's no changes in this first one. But when you get down to any place where it talks about where previous, there we go. Whoops. And some of them were already in the 6s last year. So just up a little bit more. You see that all that's in bold right there on, I lost it now. A little bit farther down. There we go. Whoa. See in this column, in the third column, D, this you had this last week, so I didn't highlight that in yellow, but we have added the word all in bold and in italics wherever we talked about the students. So it was not just support and assess P12 students learning, but it's to support and assess all P12 students learning, picking up on that individual requirement that really is a requirement in Montana as well, but hasn't been as articulated as it currently is now in the PSAL standards. So that one is not highlighted because we had that last week, but let's go down to some yellow ones. Remember that we're recommending that this section C at the top of your page be eliminated because although it's best practice and it's something we strive to do, this need not be an arm because we don't have control over retention. We don't do evaluation in the true sense of evaluation. We do provide feedback to our mentor teachers, but this section just isn't appropriate and we can't provide evidence for it. So it's our recommendation that this be eliminated.
So when you were talking about retention of clinical educators, is this essentially your student teachers, or is this, we're talking about something else?
This is for our mentor teachers, the K-12 teachers who provide support and mentoring for our candidates. That C really deals with all of that. We have other places where we talk about we co-select and co-construct, but the focus on our having impact on the clinical educators is really it's not appropriate for us to measure and provide evidence on. We know that they are an important component, but we can't really, we don't have evidence to demonstrate that they provide a positive impact, that we can impact the retention of those folks. So we just think that this section, because it can't be measured, needs to go away. And that was a recommendation we made last week as well. So if you'll scroll on down farther, I'll get to more of those. There's another all, but you had that last week. Keep going. I'm looking at the third column for yellow stuff. Most of it's going to be in 7. Okay, this is the new one that was put up just recently. These are new standards that come out of CAPE. And although this is going to be part of accreditation for CAPE, we don't think that this needs to be included in rule. It is in regards to Title IV funds. And in order for a school to receive full CAPE accreditation, they'll need to meet this standard. But I don't think it needs to be in our rule as we have an option to do CAPE or state accreditation. All right, so keep on going. Okay, stop. See where we added, we always had the educational potential. And the previous page talked about each person, not each student, which we think is appropriate, and we've left that alone. But we have inserted everywhere that this is found through the rest of chapter 7 and well-being. So we are not discounting or forgetting the intentional shift for leaders to be concerned about the well-being of staff and students. So you'll see that throughout the rest of this document. So that's a big change that you'll need to note and why we did that. And it's sprinkled all the way through. There's another one. There's another one. And another. It does seem at first glance to be redundant, but if you look at that short sheet that I sent with this, you'll see how redundant it is in the PCL standards, which really emphasizes the need to focus on the well-being of the folks that work in our systems and the students that we serve. So we think that the other content pieces on the PCLs are incorporated throughout the document. Perhaps the language isn't exactly the same, but the flavor of vision and mission, for example, is included already in the original language. But this piece, the well-being piece, was not. And so we've inserted that all the way through this document. So that's the big change. If you've done all your homework from last week, the big change that you need to know is the things that you'll see in this document that are in yellow.
Okay. And yeah, we will make sure we get this version posted for people to review. I see Gary has his hand up.
Yeah, thank you. First of all, I'd just like to thank Stevie and whoever else worked on all this. It's much appreciated. I appreciate your effort and work creating things. The question I have is, in one of the PCL standards you cited, it indicated that I think just for administrators, but may apply to teachers as well, act ethically. So I'm just curious, is there a documented code of ethics for administrators and teachers?
There is.
Okay. Thank you.
And if you think that's important, we certainly could infuse that. It's all the education programs that prepare leaders do use that as part of our total curriculum. And although I appreciate the thanks, I would be remiss if I didn't say that my colleagues from U of M and MSU have been involved and will continue to be involved as we move along in this process. They've been very helpful.
Hey. Mary, I see you have your hand up. I'm assuming maybe that was from before, but I don't want to shortchange you if you have something you want to say.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, my whole web thing is all screwed up, so just ignore that.
Okay. Well, thank you, Mary, for clarifying that. So we are at our time. I think this is a good stopping point. I would just say that I would ask that everybody look at this. Like I said, we will get this up on the Google page. I will follow up in an email, maybe tomorrow. My schedule today is kind of crazy, but make sure we get that so people have time to review. And then, next week, I think we can devote our time to looking at these and then just, other discussions about the timeline. It sounds like we will need to, if we need a vote, we won't be able to do that on the 7th. So we'll need to be keeping that in mind. And I'll be visiting with Jacqueline and Tristan, and I'm sure Cheryl and others. Always here if you want to email or call or have questions. Appreciate so much everybody's efforts and contributions to this process. It's not just for me, but for the students and the people of the state of Montana. Thank you, and please have a great rest of your day. And we will see you on the 30th at 8 o'clock.
All right, thank you.
Take
Thank
care,
you, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good weekend.
Right, thanks.